If you enjoy this video, please like, comment and subscribe. This helps me reach more viewers. Thank you. My husband Dougal, our son Billy and I resided in Stirling, central Scotland, and the event I wish to recount occurred a few years back. It was a typical evening. Dougal was in Edinburgh for business, as he frequently was, and he had also planned to visit his mother during the trip. Billy was 8 years old, my beloved only child. He was somewhat pampered, and I believed his exceptional reading abilities, which were quite rare for a boy, were due to my decision to leave my mundane office job in order to spend more quality time with him. As a result, we often read together. Billy had a special fascination with tales of wizards and witches, which beautifully matched his enduring passion for Thomas the Tank Engine. That evening, we enjoyed one of his favourite Thomas episodes on DVD, and afterward, I took him upstairs for our customary bedtime story. "No, it's all right, Mum," Billy said as I walked into his room. "I have a fantastic book I want to finish on my own." I let out a quiet sigh. This was the start. He was gaining independence with each passing day. Before long, he might not need me anymore. However, I smiled and responded, "Just for half an hour. I'll come back to check on you then." In the kitchen, I loaded the dishwasher, settled a few bills online, and sent a couple of texts to Dougal. After that, I returned to check on Billy, who was peacefully sleeping on his back. I gently tucked the quilt up to his chin before softly exiting, leaving the door slightly ajar. We recently had the loft converted, and Douglas and I now have our bedroom up there. The stairs are located outside Billy's room, so I made my way up, planning to enjoy an early night with a novel. After switching off the overhead light, I turned on my bedside lamp, pulled back the covers, and climbed into bed. An hour of reading later, my eyelids grew heavy, prompting me to place my book on the side table and turn off the lamp. I recall lying in the darkness, my cheek nestled against the pillow, reflecting on how fortunate I was to have my family, Dougal and my son. Feeling grateful, I drifted off to sleep on my right side, which meant my back was turned to the door. It felt like just moments had passed when I was roused from sleep by Billy climbing into bed, his spine gently pressing against mine. This was quite normal for us. I suppose he could almost convince himself that he didn't need his mum in the middle of the night if he turned away from her. Even though it was November and the air was crisp, I often found myself overheating under the covers, so I typically wore a strappy nightgown that left the upper part of my back exposed. Feeling my son nestled against me, I savoured the warmth of his body pressed against my skin. With my eyes closed, I remained in a state of slumber. Billy lay on his side, and as I rested there, I gradually began to emerge from my deep slumber. As I became more aware, the details of my surroundings started to come into focus. Standing tall, I noticed that my 8-year-old son was only about 4 feet tall. However, despite his head resting on the pillow, I could feel his heels against mine. How could that even be possible? Could Dougal have returned home early? Was it Thursday? Moreover, the front door was secured with a bolt. I would have needed to unlock it. As I lay there contemplating the situation, I noticed a scent in the room that definitely wasn't present when I went to bed, or ever for that matter. It took me back to the city farm we had last taken Billy to, with its barnyard aroma reminiscent of cow dung. I scrunched my nose at the terrible odour. The pungent smell of manure gradually filled the room, becoming overwhelming, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Could Billy have had an accident? Surely he was too old for that now. A sense of alarm prickled at my scalp. Then the person behind me began to shift. He was slowly turning to face me, taking his time. I sensed the movement of his arms and legs as he shifted his weight, an astonishingly heavy weight, no doubt. I felt his knees press against the backs of mine, broad, bony knees belonging to a man, not a slender boy. My limbs froze in fear, and then came the most dreadful moment. A rough, heavily stubbled chin scraped against my bare back like coarse sandpaper. A large hand clasped my hip, its fingers pressing painfully into the soft flesh. In that fleeting moment before I sprang out of bed, I sensed, though I can't explain how, that this was the devil. With my throat too constricted to scream, I dashed to the door, flung it open, and in my rush, tripped over my long nightdress, tumbling into the doorway. The suffocating stench of animal waste filled the air. Behind me, the creature in the bed emitted a sound that was a mix between a snort and a chuckle. The mattress creaked. Was it sitting up? Without glancing back, I let out a terrified squeal and scrambled to my feet. Clumsy in my panic, I lost my balance again and tumbled down the stairs, landing on my bottom at Billy's door. Was too stunned to notice if I was hurt. Then I realized my foot had pushed the door open. There lay my son in bed, just as I had last seen him, sound asleep. I was truly shaken, let me tell you. Slamming Billy's door, I locked it and made my way to the kitchen. After wrapping myself in a couple of coats, I prepared a cup of cocoa and settled down to watch some mindless TV to calm my nerves. Considering it was 1 a.m., there was no point in trying to call Dougal. There was absolutely no chance I was returning to my bed. I dragged an armchair to the bottom of the stairs to keep an eye on Billy's door, determined to endure and ensure that thing didn't come in. I spent the rest of the night there, wrapped in coats, dozing intermittently. As I recount this today, I realize I probably sound completely insane. But you weren't there, lying in bed with that creature. I was. The following day, while Billy was at school, I was making his bed when I noticed the corner of a book peeking out from beneath the pillow. It turned out to be a novel by Dennis Wheatley, an author well known in the 1960s for his stories about black magic and the occult. My dad had been quite fond of these tales, and 2 years ago, when he moved into a care home, my brother and I helped pack up his house. I had taken Dad's collection of vintage Wheatley novels for nostalgia, as I fondly remembered him reading them in our back room. The cover featured a red, horned devil. While my son is an advanced reader, he was far too young for this kind of material. It was completely inappropriate. The books were stored on a high shelf in the lounge, so my little rascal must have spotted them, climbed up on a stool, and pulled one out. I was left bewildered. Had I seen this book in Billy's room recently and simply forgotten? Or had it remained in my mind since I stashed them away 2 years ago? Why would I also hallucinate a disgusting farmyard stench, something that could likely linger around a devilish creature? I didn't step back into our bedroom until Dougal returned home 2 days later. While the creature and its unpleasant smell never resurfaced, even after all these years, I still refuse to go to bed before Dougal and never stay there when he's away. Dougal lacks a vivid imagination. Sorry, Doug, but it's true, and he simply chuckled when I shared my story. I was left pondering my thoughts. Had I spotted this book in Billy's room recently and overlooked it? Or had it lingered in my mind for the 2 years since I tucked it away in the lounge? But why would I also envision a repulsive farmyard odour, one that could plausibly accompany a monstrous creature that was part animal? After placing the book back on the shelf, I remained silent about it again. In any case, Billy is now at university. Like many young people, he sports an all-black wardrobe and listens to music that I find utterly dreadful, featuring shrill vocals, distorted screaming guitars, and jarring chords. Although I miss him, it's a relief not to hear that loud music blasting from his bedroom every day. He calls it death and black metal, and I wasn't pleased with what I found when I researched it online. There was mention of Satanism. Yeah, Mum, don't believe everything you read, Billy said. There will always be some extremists associated with every genre of music. I hadn't thought about all this in years, but now that we're talking about it, I can't help feeling uneasy. Dad's always buried in those heavy occult tomes. Billy's wrapped up in his death metal. Who knows what he's dabbling in at university? And then there's me, stuck in the middle, piecing things together from my own strange experiences.